Good early morning for those joining from America. Good morning for those in the European African time zone, and good afternoon for the one in Asia. My name is Jean-Michel Sado. I will be co-presenting today with Nicholas Parker, and we are going to talk about low code for UN 2.0. First of all, let me introduce what my team does. We do mobile applications. If you travel, you might have been using ETA, Electronic Travel Advisory. We also manage the Roma software where application goes to retire. We also do virtual reality. And speaking of that, the virtual reality team is inviting you to have a real session face-to-face with them, because virtual reality is best experienced in person. So if you're based in Valencia, Bangkok, or New York, you can book an appointment with them, and they'll be more than happy to go over what we're doing. And now back to Nick, who's going to introduce what his team is doing.
Hello, my name's Nicholas Parker. I'm based in Valencia. Have a team across various locations. My team is mostly focused around SharePoint Online and customizations of SharePoint Online. So SharePoint Online provides a lot of capabilities, mostly powerful for sharing content documents. But we mostly focus on customizing SharePoint, so a bit more pro code, for knowledge management, for case management, and for surveys. So some of you might have used Knowledge Gateway, but case management solutions we cover from ECs. In any case, let me jump straight into the agenda. So what is low code? Some of you may have heard the term no code, low code, and pro code. So no code is really where you have a graphical interface and you want to create a form for capturing data, and you drag and drop information onto that form. Can you go back just one, Jim? Thank you. So you have a tool set for creating the forms, whereas low code instead of no code is where you have also a little bit of programming. For example, if some of you have used Excel, and there may be formulas you need to create, you want to do specific formatting of some data on the screen, then you need to write a tiny bit of code, but it's not much. And then you move into pro code where you design much more deeply. So examples of low code is Visual Basic. It's also Microsoft Access. Obviously, these are a bit coming back to my age on solutions, but the most common one within the United Nations has most likely been Lotus Notes, and been used a lot in peacekeeping missions and various locations. And that is where you define the data and then you build the form around that data. So where does this go next? Well, Power Apps is the next evolution of this. So it's a bit like going from Excel and now updating your skills even further into Power Platform. Power Platform is multiple tools. It's not just one. You might have heard of the Microsoft 365 suite of tools. It covers Power Apps. It covers Power Automate. It covers Power BI, covers Copilot Studio, and it also covers Power Pages. So Power Apps is the tool for creating Microsoft Forms or forms for data entry, where you can drag and drop. There are typically two types of Power Apps you can build, Canvas and Model. Don't get too frightened by that. Canvas apps are really where you have a blank screen, a blank canvas, and you put onto that screen specific fields you want: first name, last name, email address, your financial situation that you're going to capture, or whatever it is, maybe a ticket system. A model-driven app is where you define your data in the database at the beginning, and then you say, build me a form, and it will just automatically build a very basic form. There are differences between the two, but most people will go with Canvas apps because that gives you more flexibility. But if you're just starting and you want a very basic form, then model-driven apps are very good. So once you have a data form, usually you want some kind of workflow. So that's where Power Automate comes in. And it's a graphical tool for creating workflow. It could be something as simple as drafting, moving to an approver, and then from the approver, it could go back to a draft, or it could be signing off and going forwards. The great thing about the Power Automate is that if you do have approval steps, it actually integrates with Microsoft Teams, and there's an approval app within Teams you can load. And so every solution that you have an approver on, you can see within your Teams. Power BI, I think a lot of people know Power BI. There's been a very successful Power BI team that was running a lot of presentations and self-taught Power BI. So when we deliver solutions, we rarely ever anymore build Power BI. We just connect it to our database, and then you do your analytics. So Power BI is really business analytics, connecting to your data, doing KPIs, creating very basic reports. From Power BI, you can easily download into Excel if you want to take it offline. It's very, very powerful, and it's very much a self-service approach. So there's a wide capacity already within the UN. And that concept is really what we're doing with Power Platform. It's the self-service concept that we're using going forwards on the rest of these tools. So you can ask skilled people to help you with these solutions, or you could build them yourself. And that's the whole point, is empowerment here. Copilot is quite new. Copilot is really the generative AI, the artificial intelligence. We will talk more deeply about this as we go through. JM will do some presentations and look at that deeper. Right now, Copilot, I think, is going through OLA. There are some people that are using it, but I can foresee this is going to be very strong and very, very useful within work as we go forwards. The Power Pages, Power Pages is really an external site. So some of you have probably used SharePoint. SharePoint is known as a B2B solution, a business to business. Thank you, James. And SharePoint is really for internal communications, sharing documentations, because it's from one business to another business. So that's from one UN staff member to another one within the organization domain. The Power Pages is more for external, what we call business to client relationship. So it's either an anonymous web page that is open to everyone on the internet, or it can be authenticated, but rather than being UN authenticated, it's authenticated against a login you create, or it's authenticated using some kind of social media like your Gmail account, and that's external. The only thing to be careful about on the Power Pages is that there are, for anonymous public pages, there is a defined standard, web standard, for creating solutions for the external. Okay, so why are we mentioning SharePoint? Well, SharePoint is typically the Sorry, I'm just checking my time, so I'm keeping on time and schedule. So SharePoint has been the first rollout. It came out just before the COVID. I mean, it's always been there. We had SharePoint on premise, but it's really with the Microsoft SharePoint Online that it really took off. It's allowed people to collaborate, to share content, documents, take Excel, build up Excel, and co-author, and have multiple people working on a document. So SharePoint is really powerful, and it also shows the integration across all of the other solutions. And it's a natural progression, because if we think about how the Office people have worked and progressed, people started with Excel, then they used the Visual Basic functions within Excel and start to get more programmatic. They use Excel to build data, then they put it on SharePoint. SharePoint allows you to share that document easily without sending the whole file. It's central, so people can edit that. And then that file goes into what's called a SharePoint list. And then we start to move into the realm that we're going to talk about further, which is more adding a form on top of a SharePoint list, and then moving into workflow where you want an approval process. And that's the general evolution of low-code. It's the first kind of low-code. You can create a SharePoint site for communications. You can plug into that SharePoint site your Power BI reports that you've got linked to maybe your SharePoint list, or it could be to any other data. You can have a SharePoint list for collecting data, and then you can build a form. And as you can see on this screen, we've got a very basic Power Apps form that is linking back to a SharePoint list. And that's the general evolution, but the future direction is more about something called Dataverse, and direction of Power Apps is really working around the database called Dataverse. So it's a bit separate from SharePoint, completely separate from SharePoint, I would say. However, SharePoint won't go away. It will still be there. It's still being used, and it's very powerful. And it's going to be, as I say, remaining and still used for information. It's a cheap way to go, because as you start moving into Dataverse, and we'll talk about licenses, you have to start paying for more for the Dataverse from the outset. Whereas SharePoint, even though we still pay for storage, it's a very good way to get started and capture a certain amount of data that isn't a large enterprise solution. James, can you move to the next slide?
Yep. The next slide is mine. But I wanted to add something else about SharePoint, is that with the arrival of generative AI, you have to consider your documents as also data, and therefore having a document well organized and kind of sorted will help tremendously when you want to put Copilot on top of this document. So as Nick said, SharePoint is here to stay. And if you want to see it in a special way, SharePoint is for your document / non-structured data, and Power Apps and Dataverse is more for your structured data.
Yeah, can I just...
Sure.
Just thank you. I mean, it's important what James is saying. SharePoint, and we're going to offer another training later on, and we can put that in the chat. So SharePoint has traditionally come as a replacement for your C drive, so your D drive, where you've mapped a drive and you share files through a separate disk, if you like. So what typically happens is people see that as just a file system, but it's a lot more. When you create a library and then a SharePoint list, you have a lot of metadata, and there is a UN library out there. I believe it's called UN Documents. And it comes with a added column that has classification. And so a lot, excuse me, a lot of our knowledge management solutions are really around defining metadata on the documents you're including, because the folder structure is not really as important nowadays as it used to be. What's really important is to establish metadata on your documents. And we have a whole training session that we do around how to establish good architecture on SharePoint. So defining the taxonomy you want to use, understanding the difference between taxonomy and metadata, because taxonomy is an existing list and structure about your organization that you can use to tag against a document. And that tagging is what we call metadata. And that metadata can be like a taxonomy, like this is a financial document, this is a policy document. It could be this is a classification of a document. Is it strictly confidential? Is it confidential? Is it unclassified? And all of that information is then used within the search criteria. And SharePoint has a fabulous approach to searching through that content. And if you structure your data at the beginning and content instead of just using it as a folder dump, your searching capabilities can improve down the line. So thank you for giving me that. Back to you, James.
Yeah, so I wanted to get back to what Nick said earlier about low code and no code. Some people who came into training were surprised that there is a code in low code. And so basically low code gives you a very easy way to create your user interface and have a link to the data. But the moment you want to do some logic, you will have to write some formula. It's not very complicated, but it's still writing formula. So luckily, as Nick said, Microsoft is introducing Copilot, which is a smart AI assistant. As of now, Copilot is slowly moving into Power Apps to help you design or create things faster. So as of now, Copilot is present on every single field. You will have a Copilot suggest, and then on the side, it will offer you something. As usual with AI-generated content, it might be wrong. So you should trust but verify what Copilot is saying. And if Copilot is not working, you can ask ChatGPT or Mistral Chat in that case. And again, you might get something that works or not. But that's a way for you to express what you want in English or in French or in whatever language you're comfortable with. And the generative AI will help you by guiding you and providing the formula. In the end, you still have to do the work of putting the formula back into the system and testing it, but that's a way forward. So what is different between what was before Lotus Note and everything and the new platform? So what is the same is the speed and agility for you to build stuff. The big difference is that it's web-based and it's cloud first. It means that you don't have to deploy, you don't have to update, you don't have to install. It's always there, it's always updated, and it's accessible from everywhere from a mobile or a desktop. It also means that Microsoft is constantly, well, twice a year, pushing new stuff. Like right now, Copilot is coming and they add new stuff. So the platform keep evolving and is good because usually what they add is interesting, but at the same time, it also means that you have to keep learning. It's also very well integrated with the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem. So the Office platform, SharePoint, everything online is very well connected to the Power Platform. So you can build a very big solution by using Excel, Word, and everything. Copilot is there, like I said. And The other big difference is because it's web first and cloud first is centralized for governance, which allow to have a central view to control / observe / make sure that there is not an unwanted explosion of application. So the conclusion of that first part is that Power Platform and the local and SharePoint are tool very easy to get started to build something. Everyone can do it. The next step, as you learn about how to go forward and do it, Copilot can help, or you ask your IT team to help you with. But the same platform can be used for the proof of concept to production, and it can scale. Dynamics is built on the same platform. As Nick mentioned, there is a big caveat. Well, there's two caveats. The first one is there's a licensing cost. Earlier, we talked about Visual Basic or Microsoft Access, where you could distribute something you built, quote unquote, for free because there was a runner. That's not the case for Power Platform. It's like Lotus Note. You need to have a license to use it. And the second thing is that apart from Power Page, all the other Power Platform tools and SharePoint are made only for internal users. It cannot be used anonymously. So you have to understand that this is scope more for internal tool and internal usage. So that's what LowCode is, and how is it different from the previous tools. Now we're going to go over the quintet of change, and for each one of them, we are going to explain how we think Power Platform and LowCode help. Nick?
Okay, thanks, Jim. Okay, we're trying to link in our platform as a support for UN 2.0, and it does closely tie in. And relating to data specifically, Power BI has already proved that. There are a lot of solutions out there that are capturing data, and the Power BI can natively connect back to SharePoint lists as a starting, and then it's easily also natively connecting to Dataverse and multiple other sources. And then you can actually publish that Power BI, either just going direct through the Power BI interface, or you can connect it into a SharePoint site. And maybe at the end, I'll have time to just show where we've done that within SharePoint. So Power BI is very good at connecting natively to SharePoint without any constraints. And if you have data, for example, in a JSON format within a SharePoint field, you can also translate that into its own structure within Power BI and then utilize that data afterwards. So it's also useful for sharing documents as well, and extrapolating and sharing that data. So this is just some examples of very basic tables, and then quickly sharing that presentation and embedding. You have the option to embed that Power BI and share that with other UN staff to quickly gain access. So it's very well proven tool for sharing information and connecting it and analyzing your data across, supporting the data strategy. And I believe it was the main part of the data strategy going forward. So thank you. Over to you on digital.
Yep. So digital tool, I think it's obvious that what we explained before, the Power Platform and SharePoint enable you to build whatever digital tool is useful for you. I don't know if you're familiar with Steve Jobs, but a long time ago when he was trying to sell computers, he was saying that humans are very slow compared to all other animals. But if you give them a bicycle, suddenly they become way stronger. They can go much faster. They can go run or bike way further. And he came up with a concept of bicycle for the mind. Basically, for us, the low code is one tool set for you to build your custom bicycle and do whatever or go wherever you want to do. Innovation.
So is that you or me, Jim?
No, it's you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so the aim that the UN 2.0 quintet of changes to empower people and to move faster and empower individuals, and that's why low code is so powerful, because it's the term we call citizens development. It puts the tools in your hands. It's not necessarily for IT staff, and that's the biggest misconception. So we use the tools, obviously, because it's easy and relatively straightforward to use. But when we get to a certain level, it doesn't necessarily meet our requirements. But the concept and the point here is that it is for any UN staff member, and they can build very fast their own solutions. They can test out solutions and innovate. And we see this a lot within the UN now. It's taking off. So people are, first of all, like I said, starting with Excel, going into SharePoint with lists. Some people are putting forms on top of those lists, capturing data, and then they're plugging Power BI on the end of that to give some kind of insight into that data. And there's a term kind of like throwaway applications is sometimes used. So it really puts the power in the hand of the business. Since the business know what they want, they can build very fast and very quickly. On an enterprise scale, a lot of the ideas can scale up into enterprise solutions. And so that's why on the enterprise side and OICT, we're also investing in Power Platform and building solutions in Power Platform. But it doesn't mean it's relegated to the IT community. It's not. It's open to anyone to use, and it's easy to get started. And as you go up, there's obviously a learning curve, and it gets sometimes more complex depending on your requirements. But if you're willing to be accepting certain limitations, you can deliver some really fantastic tools and solve your business problems very cheaply. So back to strategic oversight.
Yep. So strategic foresight is basically you trying to predict the future, or at least handle the future. So we get back to the two tools we talked about, which is Power BI for your real data or structured data or numerical data, and then knowledge management for your structured data and text, and with the help of Copilot and things like that. So this one is more on you, really. And the next one is also more on you, Nick.
Yeah, I think I put the quote down there, never too old to benefit. I mean, as you can see, my beard is going a bit grey, but the whole point here is most people had to learn Microsoft Excel, Word. I know it sounds old right now, but people had to go through that learning curve. And from there, then they had to learn SharePoint, but really probably most people only use 10% of SharePoint, if that. And there's all of these features available. And now the way I see things going is more Power BI, Power Platform, is the next generation of Office tools. And they'll slowly become ubiquitous across the organization. So there is all of the behavioral science concepts around how you accept change and implementing change. And so part of what we're doing here is to try to empower people, and what we're going forwards on, and JM will talk a bit more about that, some of the events we've been doing, is to help people learn the tools and be aware about its capabilities and what's there. And with artificial intelligence and Copilot coming, it can sound very scary, but we want to break, hopefully, the back of that so people use the tools. It's not going to be a dystopian society of AI, that's for sure, but it's going to be a very powerful tool for helping people.
Speaking of tool, we believe in custom tools. If you do anything outside of IT in the real life, you will know that the first things you do is you buy the good tool for what you want to do. There is the same thing with low-code. You have to build the tool that are adapted to what you do. They can be complicated or they can be very simple. For example, with Power Automate and using the assistant of Copilot, you can create very quickly a flow that when you receive a particular email with a certain subject or from a certain person, it can create a task in your task list. So the way you do it, you go into Power Automate, you type in English, when an email arrives from Bob, create a task in the planner, and it will generate something like that, and then something like that. This is how Power Automate looks like. You will have to fill up whatever you want to, meaning connecting to your own inbox and connecting to the planner. And that's it. You have now a little tool that automates the task creation when a certain email arrives to your inbox. It can also be a custom form. So for example, I draw, you can't see it, but I have a paper here with a form that you see on screen. I draw it by hand and I input that through the wonder of AI into Power Platform, Power Apps, and it will identify all the field. It will suggest what it think it is. It's wrong, because as usual with AI generated content, it might be incorrect. In that case, it was. So I corrected it manually. And then I pressed a button and it created a very ugly form, but that's a form. I clean it up a little bit. And voila, in about 10-15 minutes, I have a form to do a registration for a hackathon event that I will run. What we are saying is this is custom tool you can build yourself for you. It doesn't have to be for everyone. It just can be for you. If you think in a different way, like you start from data, you create your data, then you click on all the button, and it will also create a form based on your data. It depends how you think. It depends how you work. Again, it takes about 10-15 minutes for you to create a basic form and help you have a tool that works the way you want to work. Nick, you want to go over SharePoint Online, or you think you talked about it before?
I can quickly go through it. So
okay.
As I kind of mentioned very briefly, SharePoint Online, it's a tool that's available. So, we should make use of it. It's extremely good for communication of information. You can have a team site or a communication site. We can easily add what are called web parts. They are literally just a plugin. For example, that could be a web part for plugging in Power BI. It could be plugging in events list, task list, calendars, etc. And you can build a very easy site for communicating within your team or across the organization. It's a good place for putting documents and putting classification against them. So that's libraries and lists. You can turn Excel into lists. And the good thing about the documents or content you put in, it all has versioning. The problem is that a lot of people don't know where versioning is and how to use it. But you can use versioning. You can set limits. You can track versions up to 50 items or more. You could limit it to 6 or 2 or even 1. And when you want to share information, it's very easy. You right-click a document, you click share. So rather than copying a document across and sending to someone else and duplicating it, sorry, Jem, can you just nip back a sec?
Sorry.
Rather than just duplicating it, you keep it in one place and you keep the master copy, and then you can have version control. You can do either check out, check in, or co-authoring, slightly different. When you check out a document, you lock it so no one else can edit it until you check it back in. Or you can just say co-author. So I'm sure a lot of you have used already, as you're editing an Excel, you see the person who is editing the other cell while you're editing, or you're putting comments in a document and so forth. I already talked about taxonomy and metadata and that leading to search. And we also do, as I said, a training we're going to publish with CDOTS on how to set up metadata and creating advanced search. Advanced search is where you have something called refiners on the left. So if you have metadata around classification, you can have the classification on the left. You could have maybe date ranges. You could have taxonomy terms. And then you have what's called verticals. So they're more like tabs on the advanced search. And those can be broken down, for example, all policy documents, or it could be all Excel documents or all PDF documents, etc. Next slide, Jen. So I threw in the question, are you still emailing your documents? I have to own up that I still do that, especially with my manager, because I think he either wants the copy locally on his SharePoint site, or he's not necessarily used to using and sharing content. So I put that question there just so we can move out of and away from that. Okay, so over to you, Jem.
So in conclusion, you are all, or we want you to all be citizen developer, meaning that you take control of your IT destiny and you build your own tool. You then evangelize with your fellow citizens, so there is more citizen developer. You realize the potential of digital transformation, and you obviously enable UN 2.0 through rapid innovation. So basically, there are tools, they are available, there is training, you are in charge, and we trust you can do something well. Now, what about us, OICT? Our role is to orchestrate the adoption of low-code in the UN. We do that through presentation like this one. We had a conference last year in December in Valencia. We hopefully will have another one. We're also organizing a global hackathon in June this year. If you haven't heard about it, there's a slide later on with contact. We're also trying to build a community inside the UN tenant and across all UN entities. So right now inside the UN tenant, there's a Microsoft team, which we encourage you to join. And we are working with Microsoft to build a cross-tenant community for all Power Platform / low-code user across all the UN entities. And there's a memo that's going to go out inside the UN Secretariat about the launch of the low-code program. And that's where we basically formalize a bit more what we're doing here. The low-code conference in Valencia, it was 3 days. We had 70 people. We had a very good time. Valencia is a city of art and science and paella. So we visited the city of art and science and paella. It was very good. We also had Microsoft presenting what is the Power Platform, where it's going, what generative AI is bringing to the table. We discussed how to use it for various entity and so on. It was very interesting, and hopefully we'll repeat it this year. There was a question about training. So this is very UN-centric. As on the chat, someone said ITU also had training. So basically online on the internet, you have YouTube and you have Microsoft providing training. They're very general. CDOTs inside the UN also provide more customized training based on how our infrastructure is set up. And in particular, for the upcoming hackathon in June, they have a specific 5-day training on get started with the Power Platform so you can move forward. Nick, up to you.
Yeah, one of the other events, so just before we go, I just want to plug as well, is the Power Platform is constantly changing, and one of the sort of criticisms or points people point out is that it's as soon as you've learned one thing, they've introduced another feature. So keeping up is complicated. So we do a quarterly review with Microsoft to everyone. It's open, and it's really an update on what is coming and what has changed on Power Platform. So it gives you, it's only 1 hour. It gives you an overview of Power Platform and what's there or what is to come, so you can keep informed. So the advisory group license management. So we're working to coordinate licensing to reduce it. Currently, for example, Power Platform, Power Apps is approximately $12 per person per month. And if we can coordinate and have Power Platform ubiquitous across the organization, then obviously we can bring that cost down to a much lower area. So that's what we're hoping to do and work towards. We also manage and look at how to sort out the tenants. So what are the policies and requirements needed there, and what are the issues that are coming up? For example, monitoring applications, how to prevent duplications. OICT do a fantastic job here. They have already published a marketplace, so we're coordinating with them to establish a marketplace for everyone, every location, that someone can take this and download and reproduce an application for their own needs. So rather than someone else rebuilding the same thing, they can repurpose a solution. We have some issues, for example, how to manage the storage and make that cost efficient. We meet with Microsoft on a weekly basis to discuss all of the issues around Power Platform and the events we're doing. We coordinate closely with them. And we're also providing any assistance. So you can reach out to us on lowcode@un.org if you want further information.
If you need help and it doesn't work in low code, we also do pro code. That's also what we do. We help with complex projects. We'll help integration with enterprise system by API. As I mentioned earlier, my team does mobile application in virtual reality. So outreach to us if you cannot build what you want with low code. There's a hackathon coming in everywhere. So for now, we have confirmed events in New York. It will happen in the Microsoft opposite of the UN, in Geneva, in Valencia, and in various locations. For now, only the New York registration is open, and it closed by the end of this week because Microsoft need to have the list of people. I put the link in the chat. This is open to all UN agency, not just UN Secretariat. So if you are in New York and you want to join for a 5-day hackathon, please register. The point of the hackathon is for people to do. I learn best by doing, and the hackathon is an opportunity for you to come meet people who are interested. There will be support from Microsoft and us, and we hope that you can build something in 3D and wow everyone. Contact us at lowcode.un.org if you need more detail, or in the chat, we will provide some detail. Now we're going to open the question. There's a QA tab, if you can put it there. So there was a first question from Philippe, who was asking, can Power Platform be used for guests on the O365 tenant, not anonymous? Yes, it's possible. It's called a guest account, and it's required to register every account one by one. So it's a bit painful, but it's possible. And there was another question in the normal chat saying, can we have a UN library for common templating that Power Automate? We are working on that. It's so far it's not done, but that's one of the things I want to do during the hackathon is to build a common library and have it reused. And this is also related to the advisory group work we're trying to do. And again, I'm sorry, this is specific to the UN tenant for now, how we can standardize and have common template and basic skeleton app that people can reuse and things like that. And now I'm waiting for your question either in the QA or in the normal chat.
Just to answer, this is being videoed, so we will share the video afterwards.
Yes, and as we repeated a few times already, you can contact us at lowcode.un.org when I type the email properly. And we will gladly answer any question that we can answer. No more question? Then I'm going to give the, oh, okay. Apart from, this one, Patrician, I cannot answer. And then, yes, so Elias is asking, how about the future management of all developed low-code application and Unite apps and cybersecurity? So we are very aware of that. This is also one task of the advisory group. For now, the way things are is that if you use Power Platform normal without the Dataverse, by default, cybersecurity will approve because what you can do is limited. As for what needs to be registered in Unite apps, it's a judgment call. So for example, if I build my custom form just for me, or my application just for me, I will not register that in Unite apps. If you decide to build one of these apps here, a mission report or a more complicated app at the department level, yes, you should put that in Unite apps and so on. Nick mentioned the concept of throwaway apps. If you build a quick app for throwing it away, obviously you don't have to put it in Unite apps, but if you want to make it bigger, it will go in Unite apps. I mentioned that the Power Platform is centrally monitored. At the tenant level, we can see all the, I think now it's like 900 Power Apps that exist. And we do have reports. And once again, the advisory group will start publishing this report in a more regular manner, so we know what to do and how to deal with it. Elias, I hope I answered your question. Yep.
Just to add to that, so the governance that already exists on the Power Platform, it restricts the initial environment to a default set of connectors. And if you stick to those, for example, that's Power Apps to Dataverse. If you stick to that, you don't need cybersecurity. That's already approved. When you start to move out the realm of connecting to other data sources is when you really need to go to the Architecture Review Board. Obviously, this is UN Secretariat specific. policy. If you have another tenant, then it's obviously can be quite different. But that's the restriction. And if you need another connector, then you first go to the EATF to get approval to use that. They will review your architecture, how you're securing that connection. If that's already something, for example, connecting to a Moja, or it's connecting to another solution, ECC or whatever solution it may be, then they need to ensure that it's secure, and then cybersecurity come in. And that's typically when, and the boundaries of when you need to go to cybersecurity.
Okay, I'll take the next question from Tanya, who's asking what's the difference with Power Premium and normal. So currently inside the UN tenant, what I'm going to say is specific to the UN tenant. Well, not the difference, but the rest. So inside the UN tenant, we all have a basic Power Premium license, which give us access to Canvas app and using as a data backend, SharePoint list or Excel. If you want to get access to the Dataverse, this is a premium license. If you want to get to use SQL Server, this is a premium license. And as Tanya found out, there's a certain connector in Power Automate which are premium. So you also have to understand Power Apps Premium and Power Automate Premium are two different licenses. Right now we have basic of Power Automate, basic of Power Apps, basic of Power BI. As you know, if you need anything premium of that, you have to purchase it on top, and it's a yearly fee per user. Microsoft keep adding a functionality in the premium. Sometime a certain premium feature become normal. But basically everything around the Dataverse is premium. And Copilot is very strong on the Dataverse, so a lot of what can be done with Copilot will be premium. And there was also earlier a question which was halfway replied about when will be Copilot available in the tenant. So Microsoft called a lot of things Copilot. Right now, if you open your Power Apps, there is a bit of Copilot there, assistance on certain field and things like that. But this is not the global Copilot where you can ask questions and things like that. The overall rollout of the global Copilot is currently looked into by OICT to make sure that privacy is done. We have a way to pay for the licenses because it's not free and so on. So it's being discussed, it's being looked at from a budgetary point of view, and it will be coming, but for now it's not there. Okay, so Sean is asking a tricky question. Oh, well, there's Kieran first. So I'll do Sean because I read it first and I'll do Kieran. The question is, are there good options available now to use Copilot to support help structuring data from unstructured sources? Apart from experimenting, not really. There's a few attempts to input your document and try to get JSON out of it. It kind of works. This is more, you have to do it. There's nothing that works out of the box very, very well, unfortunately. If you're interested, we can connect you with a few AI team who have been working on that here. Drop us an email. And then Kieran is asking, can you provide a coaching services? I have experience with Power Apps, but I'm not welcome to scale out to 25 offices. So like I mentioned, CDOTS is organizing a training. They can do the training customized to you if you're interested. So I would suggest you contact them and see if they can do something specific for you. And is there any other question? No. And oh, I see we're getting to the end of the time. So I would like to thank you very much for your attendance, for your active participation in the chat. This has been recorded. It will be shared on the UN 2.0 week website. And as we said many times, please contact us at lowcode@urn.org for anything. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.